You walk into a room and something tightens, not because anything happened. You just feel watched, judged, and no one told you to feel that way. But that is not the real problem. You are exhausted, and you cannot explain why. Not from work, not from sleep, from something quieter. You are exhausted from tracking how you are being perceived, from the low-level scan running in every conversation, every meeting, every room, checking if you are acceptable, if you are safe, whether anyone is about to decide they have seen enough of you. You are not present. You are being evaluated by yourself. You are not exhausted from your life. You are exhausted from monitoring it. And here is what makes this worse. Most of the people you are monitoring yourself for are not monitoring you back. They are running their own scan, checking their own acceptability, consumed by their own performance. You are not connecting. You are managing connection. You have been performing for an audience that was never watching. And your brain has a biological name for why it cannot stop. By the end of this, you will understand exactly what that name is and the only thing that actually lowers the dial. Chapter 1. The study that changes everything. But before we go deeper, let me show you the study that proves this is not just in your head. In 1999, psychologists Thomas Gilovich and Kenneth Savitsky ran a series of experiments at Cornell University. They asked participants to wear an embarrassing t-shirt, a large photo of Barry Manilow on the front, into a room full of strangers. Before entering, they asked participants to estimate how many people in the room would notice the shirt. The participants predicted roughly half the room would notice. The actual number, less than 1/4. They called this the spotlight effect, the documented, replicable tendency for people to dramatically overestimate how much others notice their appearance, their mistakes, their emotions, and their performance. You are the star of a show no one else is watching. The spotlight effect shows up everywhere. When you say something awkward in a meeting, you replay it for hours. The other people in the meeting forgot it before the meeting ended. When you laugh too loud at something that was not funny, you feel the heat of the room. The room has already moved on. Every careful word choice, every managed expression, every opinion you swallowed to avoid friction, most of it went completely unnoticed by the people you were performing for, not because they do not care about you, because their brain is running the same scan yours is, tracking their own acceptability, managing their own impression, consuming their attention on their own performance review. The audience was not indifferent. It was absent. Everyone was too busy being a performer to be a critic. Chapter 2, Aiden. I want to tell you about a man named Aiden. Aiden is 32, competent at his job, has good friendships, is, by most external measures, someone who has figured out how to function in the world. But follow Aiden through a single work meeting, and you will see something. He enters the room and within 30 seconds has run a full assessment. Who is senior to him? Who is watching? What the temperature of the room is? What version of himself this situation requires? All of this happens before he has sat down during the meeting. A part of Aiden is always watching Aiden, checking whether he spoke too much or too little, whether his last comment landed or fell flat, whether the slight pause before his answered read as uncertainty, whether the way he laughed at his manager's joke was convincing enough. He leaves the meeting exhausted. Not from the content, from the monitoring. You are not being seen. You are being filtered. You're not connecting. You're performing connection. What Aiden does not know is this. His manager was thinking about a difficult email she had to send after the meeting. His colleague was tracking his own performance, worried he had talked too much. The senior person in the corner was composing a grocery list in his head. Aiden was not being watched. He was watching himself being watched, and the energy he spent on that invisible surveillance, the constant split between participating and observing his own participation, left him with nothing. No presence, no actual connection, just the exhausting residue of a performance delivered to an empty theater. Chapter 3. The Sociometer. Here is the mechanism underneath everything Aiden was experiencing. It has a name, and this is where it gets strange. In 1995, psychologist Mark Leary proposed a theory called sociometer theory. The core idea is this: your brain does not primarily care about self-esteem the way self-help culture describes it. It cares about social inclusion because, for most of human history, exclusion from the group meant death. So your brain built a dedicated monitoring system, a continuous background scanner that tracks signals of potential rejection and generates anxiety as a warning when it detects them. Leary called this the sociometer. It runs below conscious awareness. It cannot be turned off. And it is scanning right now in every room you enter. You are not relaxed. You are performing safety. Your brain is not being paranoid. It is running ancient survival software. In a modern room, the problem is calibration. The sociometer was calibrated in environments where social threat was real and frequent, where a wrong move could genuinely cost you your place in the group, where reading the room was not anxiety, it was intelligence. But your modern social environment is not that environment. The meeting room is not the tribe. Your colleague forgetting to invite you to lunch is not exile. The awkward silence after your joke is not banishment. Your sociometer does not know this. It cannot distinguish between ancient social threat and modern social discomfort. It treats both with the same alarm, the same anxiety, the same instruction to puffoften, to monitor, to protect. Here's what most people never realize. You are spending evolutionary threat response energy on situations that do not require it. And that spending is what exhausts you, not the room. The scan, understanding. The sociometer does not silence it, but it changes your relationship to what it is telling you. The alarm is not information about the room. It is information about your calibration, and calibration can be adjusted. Chapter 4. Inside the Scan. Here is what the sociometer feels like from the inside, in real time. In the next conversation you have, you walk in. Before you have said a word, part of your attention has already left the present moment and gone to the balcony, watching from above, tracking the room, measuring the distance between who you are right now and who this situation requires. Someone speaks, you listen, but another part of you is already preparing your response, not for clarity, for acceptability. You are pre-editing what you are about to say, removing the edges, softening the position, checking whether the real version of the thought is too much. You say something. You hear how it lands. You run an immediate post-analysis, tone, timing, word choice, volume. Did it come across the way you intended? Did anyone shift expression? Did the energy of the room change? All of this happens in seconds. Below your conscious decision making, while you are also trying to have an actual conversation. You leave, and the scan does not stop. You replay the conversation. You run the highlights. You find the moments that feel risky. You pre-process how you will handle the fallout, if any, of those moments are remembered and judged, except they will not be remembered because the people in that room went home and ran their own replay, their own risk assessment, their own sociometer output. You appeared in their replay for approximately 0 seconds. You spent 2 hours in the scan. They spent 0 seconds thinking about you. That is not cruelty. That is the spotlight effect meeting the sociometer. Two systems working together, consuming your presence and returning nothing. Chapter 5. What the scan is costing you. Here is the bill. What? The sociometer charges you for running it at maximum sensitivity. First, presence. Every percentage of attention that goes to the scan is a percentage that does not go to the actual room, the actual person, the actual moment. You are never fully anywhere. You are always partly on the balcony, watching yourself be somewhere. Second, connection. Real connection requires two people to be actually present. When you are running the scan, you are sending a managed version of yourself into the interaction. People feel the management, not consciously, as a slight distance, a warmth that almost arrives, a version of you that is close but not quite reachable. Third, energy. The scan runs continuously. It does not rest between conversations. It does not clock out. When you get home, it processes the day. It prepares for tomorrow. It is the reason you are tired, in ways that sleep does not fix. Fourth, accuracy. The scan is not giving you useful information. It is generating false positives at a high rate. Most of what it flags as social threat is not social threat. It is ordinary human interaction being processed through a system calibrated for a much more dangerous environment. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. The scan costs you. The thing it is trying to protect, it is trying to keep you socially safe, but the monitoring itself is what prevents you from being socially present. And presence is the only thing that actually creates the connection the scan is trying to protect. You cannot connect while you are monitoring the connection. The scan is eating the thing it is scanning. For Chapter 6, How the Dial Got Set. Here is why your sociometer is running at a higher sensitivity than most people you know. The sociometer is not fixed at birth. It calibrates over time, based on experience, specifically based on the moments your brain classified as significant social threat. Not every embarrassing moment resets the dial. Most roll off, but some land differently. The moment someone laughed at you in front of a group, the moment you said the honest thing and the room went cold, the moment you took up space and someone made it clear with a look or a word or a silence that you had taken too much. Your brain processed those moments the same way it processes physical danger. It logged them. It updated the threat model, and it turned up the sensitivity on the sociometer to make sure it caught any similar signal early enough to prevent a repeat. The dial did not break, it was set. By specific moments your brain decided were emergencies. And here is what that means. The scan is not random. It is targeted. It looks specifically for the type of social moment that previously generated the emergency classification. A room that feels like that room. A person whose energy resembles that person. A situation that has the same shape as the one where being yourself had a visible cost. So the scan fires hardest exactly when you most want to be present, in the rooms that matter, with the people who count, in the moments that have actual stakes. Because those are the rooms that most resemble the original emergency. And your sociometer treats resemblance as identity. The dial was set for a reason, by real experiences. That is not a character flaw. That is a nervous system doing its job. The problem is that the dial was set for those specific rooms, and you are carrying the same, setting into every room since, including rooms that have never threatened you and never will. Chapter 7, the recalibration. Here is how the sociometer actually changes. Not through insight, not through deciding to care less. Through new data, the sociometer is an evidence-based system. It set the sensitivity dial based on what actually happened. It will only lower the dial based on what actually happens next. You cannot think it into recalibrating. You cannot convince it with logic. You have to show it. You are not relaxed. You are performing safety. And the only way to stop performing it is to give the system evidence that safety does not require a performance. New data looks like this. You say the real thing, not the softened version. The actual opinion, the honest answer, the response that has not been pre-edited for maximum acceptability. And then you wait, not hopefully, just observantly. You watch what actually happens, not what the scan predicted would happen. What actually happens. Most of the time, nothing catastrophic happens. The conversation continues. The relationship survives. The room does not turn. The person does not leave. And your sociometer receives a piece of data it does not know how to categorize. Authenticity without consequence. Here's what most people never realize. That data does not immediately lower the dial. One data point is not enough, but it starts a process, a slow accumulation of evidence that contradicts the threat model, that shows the sociometer that this room is not that room. That's saying the real thing here does not produce the emergency it was calibrated to prevent. The recalibration is not a decision. It is a result. The result of showing up as yourself, repeatedly, in rooms that do not punish you for it, until your brain has enough evidence to revise the threat assessment. And when the dial starts to lower, the scan runs quieter, takes less bandwidth, leaves more of your attention for the actual room, the actual moment, happening right now, instead of the imagined emergency your sociometer was preparing for. You were not performing because you are weak. You were performing because your brain was running a protection system calibrated for a more dangerous world. The audience was never as large as the scan told you. The threat was never as close as the alarm suggested. The dial can be lowered not by deciding to care less, by showing your nervous system, one real moment at a time, that caring this much is no longer necessary. You do not need to become more confident. You need to stop watching yourself exist. The quietest way to stop performing for people who were never watching is to give your brain enough evidence that the room is safe. It is waiting for that evidence. You are the only one who can provide it. If this hit somewhere real, you are probably not the only one carrying it. Understanding the system is the first step to running it differently.